I watched TIK's video on what he's calling Gnosticism. That's sticking, so we'll stick with that. It's like he made a very good video there. He's about 100% correct in everything that he says. There's one or two details of it, but as to someone who has studied it, it is actually that simple. It's actually that simple as he puts it out, as to where, yes, there is a nameless religion in the world that steers things, that's fundamentally based on the principles laid down in the book of Revelations. It's like this church, it's like I discovered it many years ago. And we're basically all the lesser sorts of messianic religions come from, although there are much older messianic traditions than the book of Revelation. Much, much older ones. But TIK has rightly put it. He goes straight to it and says, St. Augustine called the book of Revelation a book of ridiculous fables, and it absolutely is. And there's no getting past it. A war's been fought over that. The Spanish Inquisition could have been seen to have been mean, but they were up against people who believed these magical myths and legends from someone who was certainly a Gnostic, or someone who spoke from divine revelation. Now, wisdom, right? To speak wisdom is understandable and it clicks, if you like. Well, that makes sense. Whereas prophecy doesn't have to. So the difference between wisdom and prophecy, they are not the same thing. They are two different schools. And he's right. The book of Revelation brings mysticism and also brings in prophecy. And it's like it goes to create like a vacant position. That of the second coming, the Alpha Omega, and the mystic, as to where they have got the ability in their magic knowing to usurp and impersonate, rise to the top of any organisation. There's been actually a loophole they've placed there in order for the mystic to be able to reach for what are symbolic, empty thrones, and also cults that have existed on you'll be saved. One day the Messiah will come and save you and punish the evil ones. People have been sat waiting for that to happen for thousands of years. There's been cults, right? And then there's been cults built to actually defend against this ancient evil magic. So you've got cult and counter cult. And the counter cult has been destroyed and can't be rebuilt. Its relics have been left behind, but its ways of operating in this day and age, it's like getting away with being the Spanish Inquisition when you come to realise that you're up against sorcerers who've cast spells on people and have them believing that they're living on a dying planet. And those who disagree with that be seen as the heretics. It's like, we've come a long way, haven't we? It's like the opposition to it, not understanding that you're actually up against people who know that they're pulling a fast one. They ain't naive, they ain't stupid. They know. We're not giving them enough credit for being masterful liars and deceivers who will tell any lie for the greater goal of the imagined utopia. It's like the ways and means of going about first eliminating useful idiots, which is not that difficult, and then actually finding masterful high priests of mischief and lies, hiding in plain sight behind glamours, having people say things of them like, "He's ever such a nice man. Have you ever met him? Like Jimmy Savile, fucking Gary Glitter." And it's like, oh, and we'll let a load of funny business go on. We'll turn a blind eye so we can just blend into the crowd. It's like there is a practical side to this that's alarming and devastating. But if you understand it, human being can be reduced down to a animal, controlled, enslaved. It's like this is an ancient evil that's always had a following, but has managed to find its way into the modern world by changing form over and over and over again. But fundamentally, it's Gnosticism. It is people who think they're psychic. There's a truth to that no one is. No one. And the most powerful of psychics would be the man who knows he isn't. Knows he isn't. Not get drawn into it. It's like, if you don't get drawn into it, they can't compete with you, they can't play with you, they won't even get near you, you'll never get a fair fight off a member of the cult, ever. They're all doing it for their own ends, they all know they're doing wrong, they all have got that inbuilt soul or else connection to the Almighty, to the boss, that's punishing them on a daily basis, and they're actively, deliberately at war with their creator. And you know what? This war against God, it was pretty well documented in the Old Testament. And then somehow we decided that, that's just old. Not understanding that man has to be the mediator because God is a little bit unruly, a little bit savage. God is of an older time. He has got a different way of seeing things. Like you stare into the abyss, and the abyss eventually looks back at you, and what do you see? Mirror, something you created that you can't hide from. Not forever. And it's like that brick wall of the divine, let's say, revelation that the cults wait for. The form it takes is they're not going to like it, and the transition is going to be extremely painful, and it's inevitable too. It's like, what? It's like, yes, they've gone to war with God, right? And God is doing his part to bring this to a hilarious conclusion. But we have to do our bit. On our side, we have to do our bit, and it's like, bearing in mind, you're up against people who are locked in. Everything's completely bound to the cult. It's like as your approach towards them has been ineffectual, and you need a different set of tactics. Now, the different set of tactics is to attack the premise or the foundationless foundation of the occult creeds, which is the Book of Revelation. And the way to deal with it is to turn it into a weapon against them, as has been done before. It's actually, in some regards, been used as a safety mechanism. There are two sides to the eternal, ridiculous, imaginary, fantasy struggle. A Pandora's box was opened by the Book of Revelation that put us at a state of imagined or else spiritual war that's real for the people who are involved in it, but doesn't often lead to bloodletting, but it does eventually. And when it does, it leads to the death of a great many people. You can track back to the Pandora's box being opened, and at the same time, you know, like the government being able to like print unlimited amounts of money to go to war. And then suddenly from war, you've got a butcher's bill in the millions. And have you heard some of the ideas some of these fucking people have had who've led countries into war and fucking genocide, Nazis? Hitler believed the universe was built of ice. Didn't understand economics. He made the same mistakes as Marx did because he was a Marxist. With his understandings of economics, markets, growth, didn't have a fucking clue what he was talking about. He wasn't a farmer. Never worked in a factory. Never drove a van. Didn't know shit, really. Like his friend Stalin, he was a frustrated art student, but also a highly traumatized victim of World War One. As to the crucible of events that created the Nazis, it's like they were the monsters who were able to take power when the true elite of that country were all bankrupt. Had their wealth stripped from them for very little because of the old Weimar Republic and its inflation. So it's like government intervention deleted the hierarchy. You know, the local setup as to where you may be in money, your parents were the teachers, you're a teacher, your family was a blacksmith, you're a blacksmith. This is the kind of thing, you know, these kind of hierarchies that have existed for centuries in some. Like these guys own the land, we rent the land, they protect us, they take our stuff to market for us. All these kind of relationships destroyed by the hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic. The hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic is one fine reason why I've been born right here, right now. It's like when half of your maternal great grandparentage was like suddenly left a pauper because the money they had was in a bank in like Frankfurt. Right. See you later. Forget it. Like the fortunes lost in Europe and the rearrangement of the social classes as to where then a rising up of all the fucking scum who climbed over the bodies of others to survive becomes the new elite. Mixture of old boys club and people you'd like to know making up the Nazi party, and then everyone else who saw an angle in joining the winning team. Every unemployed dickhead in the country in a fucking uniform. ZKO. It's like, what a world. We're up against the same thing now. It's like the climate globalists, the WEF, it's like they had abysmal people because they think their plans will work because they just know. They just know. They've decided. And we know best. And anyone who goes against the orthodoxy is just struck down, called names, character assassinated, accused of crimes, and eventually silenced with civil law, lawsuits, gag orders. It's like these forces, right, have already won and have run the game and have been in complete control for all of my lifetime. Already. It's like it's only the internet as to where we've seen a few chinks in it, and those who've made real headway, right, have had to go half mad or completely mad to be able to even think of what the world is. Because there's a mind beyond madness, and the mind beyond madness rules the fucking world. The mind that knows how to manipulate it. The only thing he doesn't control is the weather. It's like you've got higher above that you know it's out there because you know there's individual people who are so ruthless, tell any lie to get paid, commit any fraud, take any risk. You know they're out there. You know that mind exists that would exploit someone's weaknesses ruthlessly just to get what they want. Your email inbox is absolutely full of it. Where do you think they learned it from? It's like, to my mind, the forces of sorcery and chaos have got the place locked down. They're actually, the COVID thing was about them flexing their muscles to show us, oh, you just for a minute you look like you were going to make some headway. Well, guess what? We've been at this for far too long to give you a chance to even get a look in right now, because we've nearly completely finished destroying everything. They want us to march with hope off a fucking cliff. They want us to happily cooperate in our deaths, like the Nazis did, where they pretended that it was work camp and kept the subterfuge right upright until they got in the showers. Conned them all. Because it was easier to do that than to force them to do anything. So they tricked them and considered themselves genius clever. And they still do. You see it everywhere. I've decided to abandon Morrison's as a place to shop. Why? Because things this week that they're listing as being on special offer were actually cheaper at the normal price last week. And someone thinks that's clever, and someone thinks that's funny. When things starts to happen, Morrison's have a real habit of reaching for deception and gaslighting as a way to try to make it look like something's cheaper than it could have been, that it was, and it's not. Those of us who are observant, which is, you know, just about everyone who spends a quid, notices. But they keep a happy face and say, no, these are actually on offer. The real price is this. As well, last week, they were quite a bit cheaper, weren't they? Why play games like that? This is so you feel better about doing it. So you gaslight us so you feel better. I come to it today and went, there's no need to come back here ever. Let's never come back here. I'm like, I'll make do with what they sell at Aldi, as opposed to ever come here again. Just tell me how much it costs and I'll make my own mind up. Don't try and pester me back and tell me it's raining. But that's where we live now. They assume everyone's stupid and that it's okay to trick anyone they want. Say anything to get the deal. I renewed my broadband, but before I renewed it, I signed up with another company. Why? Because they were offering a good bribe. What was the bribe, John? 125 quid's worth of vouchers for Tesco's. I'm like, oh, I'll buy some tobacco with that. That'll be cool. Do quite well out of that. And they'd be like, right, I'll take that. And then my old company got in contact with me and I told them that I'd been offered an incentive. And they decided to match it. And they said, if we match what you've been offered, will you renew with us instead of going somewhere else? I said, yeah, of course I will. Have I received my voucher? Have I? Fuck. Will I ever? No. What would I have to do to get it? And it'd be a matter of I have to start writing letters and making complaints just to say I was promised. And then they'll fess it up. Process probably take about a year. It's alright. Well, technically, yeah, you can have it, but you're going to have to jump through a lot of fucking hoops. We're going to pretend we didn't offer it you. You didn't get the offer in writing, did you? Nah, on the phone. Well, you see, we recorded the call, but you probably didn't, did you? If you did, we'll give you the money right now, but if you didn't, we're saying that it didn't happen. And that's what you're up against. And there'd be people getting paid on that deal and saying, hey, blagged another one, fucking best in the business. You guys know they're out there. It's not just second-hand car salesmen that are lying pieces of shit. You find the guys who sell you holidays in those shops, they're lying pieces of shit as well. They make most of it up. What? Oh, yeah. You find that the guy who sells mortgages and insurance is particularly poor at mathematics. So he's not in order to sell you. He doesn't even get dragged into the figures. It's like, isn't there a great big game that gets played? And it's like, we have to put up with it. And it's now enforced, and its enforcers are protected by civil law. And you have to control what you say around them because you wouldn't want to upset them. You wouldn't want it. So you're spotted as to where seems a little bit sadistic and very condescending. And why do I get the feeling that I'm smarter than all of you if you think this is real? We've set about it in an inappropriate way. It's like we face a bigger enemy. We face a bigger enemy than anything you could stick a name on, and it's because there's a nameless religion that's taken hold. And it's a sex and death cult. And its power is based upon its ability to frighten us so it can do what it wants with our money and transform our economy, energy systems, modes of transport, digital freedom, restrict how far we can walk, make it too expensive for us to have our own means of transportation. It's like they mean to abandon us and make us so poor that we can't do anything about it. And that's not, obviously, profits. That's me telling you. It's like, that's what it looks like to me. And in the years to come, we're going to see, I get it, I'm used to it now. It's like once, twice a year, I'll get a blackout, no power for a day. It happens. I'm on a grid that's had a lot of extra buildings put on it the last few years, so it gets a bit weak as to where my internet connection's not as good as it once were either, because of that great big estate that they've built down there with no additional real infrastructure. So it's that. It's like, expect that. It's like, yeah, a power outage, and it's like, fundamentally, it's like, what do? Power's out for a day. Nothing. You're fucked. And what happens? Nothing. They say, we're so sorry. And that's it. They don't owe you anything for the inconvenience of your power being out for the day. So then the notion of the possibility of in the summertime, like big power outages, and it's like no one really thinks about the ins and outs of a power outage until your power goes off, and then you take something for granted that you think might still work. Everyone makes that mistake. It's like, I can't even make a brew. It's like, well, you should have thought of that when you signed up for electricity. Electricity's not so reliable, you know. So you go outside and you knock up a bit of a fire, and you boil a pan of water, and someone come along and say, you can't have a fire there. People actually catching up. So it's like, there's people catching up. It's like, okay, do they realise how serious this is? It's like Lindsay does. He reckons that the topic of a Gnostic death cult, a Gnostic sex and death cult, rules the world. And we know how they operate. And once it's brought to you as to say, you know, everyone can see the signs of it everywhere straight away. Create their own version of, you fucking what? You know you're right. And what does it do? Oh, it rewards people for bad behaviour, debasing themselves. It rewards them. That Sam Smith guy in the leotard, you think he's trying to make a statement, or do you think it's a matter of, you keep doing that crazy shit and we'll keep booking you? We want to see you debase yourself. That's what you're up there for. That's what you're, a fat dancing man. We're giving the world a fat dancing man, and we're calling it the best entertainment in the world because it rubs the nose in it. And look at them all cheer. There's embarrassment. This absurdity. Isn't it just priceless? So it's like they've got sadistic tastes and enjoy savage amusements. What's the world full of? Towards their great socialist utopia, well, it's full of debauchery and savage amusements. We can't offend you can't call someone a bitch, because apparently that's sexist when they're a bitch. It's like whoredom, the likes of which, like, wow, you've done what? That just goes on, and no one's allowed to say anything about it, because it's you who's committed the greater crime of sexism and being offensive than, the gold digger who's just ruined people's lives and got like kids everywhere by all kinds of different people that are like hostages. And then years later, these hostage kids become their own sources of chaos and mayhem. You get to thinking, we don't talk about one thing, but we don't talk about it at all. But when you address it, it soon's become about the problem you've got in addressing this subject. It's a brick wall. You just bounce off it. The solution is to reevaluate what you now know, if you've been following change tactics and take a leaf out of the books of the old Freemasons and reach for the dogma that the cults are built on and use it as a weapon against them. If anyone wants to know the secret of how to bring them down, right, it's written on the wall in plain sight in St. Edmund's Church in Rochdale. And I'm not kidding. If you find that you're up against a Gnostic cult, well, we're not the first to have realised this. So the last bastion of those who knew this and took it very seriously, the last bastion of how they took it seriously is still standing in Rochdale. By all means, go and have a look at it, but there's a hell of a lot of photographs online. You can go and weigh it up. There's quite a few things written about it that are bang on. It's like, if that's what they are, if that's what the enemy is, well, it's a matter of, we're not the first people to have faced them down. We're not the first people to have, others have envisaged that there may be a crisis like this in the future. And their voices have been sort of stifled. But hey, the relics are still here. One of them things where, say, Jordan Peterson gets to talking about meaning, and he gets to talking about how he found meaning, which is wife, commitments, businesses, kids. And then you get it where, what about the guy who's discovered that the world is actually run by a satanic cult of sorcerers, and he means to oppose them until his dying breath? I think that's even higher meaning than all the trappings of what would traditionally be seen as the life you're supposed to live. It's like there are those, right, who fight so others can have that. We've forgotten that. No one at all engaging on what is spiritual turf, imaginative. No one engaging on that turf has surrendered that turf as to where New Age, spiritual, magical communists have been able to just walk in unopposed. Because no one defends the turf. No one operates on it. It's their turf. My suggestion to you guys out there is occupy the turf as well. If they're speaking from special revelation, so can you. What does it say on the wall in that church? In plain sight. It says, I am the Alpha Omega. Revelation 21. It's like there's something baked into it that can be exploited. It's like it's been exploited. The empty throne. Barack Obama made a play as the Messiah and pulled off what could be described as a Muad'Dib. Tapped into that. Fooled everybody. Didn't fool me, but I don't count. Fooled everyone that mattered. And what fools did he make of them? That's a name that's not mentioned nearly often enough. Obama. What did who went after him hard? Pastor Manning, where's he gone? he paid the maximum price for being absolutely right about Barack Obama. Like he lost everything. For being absolutely right. It's like, if it's not addressed as sorcery from sorcerers, Gnostics, magicians, people who will say anything, speaking from special revelation, knowing that they know, speaking as God. You have to step into the same realm and challenge them there. How would one go about doing that? Well, it says on the wall, I am the Alpha Omega. If you're going to have this magic bottle that gives you this divine knowledge, well, so can I. And if you believe yourself Gnostic and knowing, well, I do too, I'm just so much better at it than you. You accept the premise of the world of bullshit, messianic bullshit that they have built everything upon, and you claim the vacant throne and see what they fucking do about it. That is in one way as to where you can go way and beyond what is acceptable free speech, as to where your First Amendment can be defined again as to what it really means, and it would be, one does not throw down as God. One does not throw down as an instrument of the Almighty. Unless you're a feminist, leftist, Democrat, Republican even. They throw down like that all the time. Unless you're some trans activist, they throw down all the time. They openly mock and challenge God. So the right and correct move against them is to throw down hard with the ace card. And the demiurge, the thing, the devil that they all fear. Announce yourself. You've arrived. And you know, a guy like myself, it's just the way that it works, it's just a box ticking exercise. I tick every box for being the demiurge himself. I tick every box for being the devil, the feared Antichrist. Why? He'd judge you. And your magic doesn't work on him. See, when someone comes at me with, I just fire it straight back. And I'm better at it than them because I've had miles more practice. It's like threats and curses do not work on me in the way that people expect. Because I see them as spell casting, which is what they are. They're a poison pen letter. An instrument meant to cut, hurt, damage. It's like there's a practical side to the magicians that we're up against that's real and effective. Now, everyone understands these smear tactics. Put the two together. Gnostic cult and spell casting and the poisoned pen letter. Oh, and telepathic communication via text message. There's opportunities in the world to trounce the whole thing, to collapse the entire prophecy. But that takes a bigger leap of faith than believing that the world's run by a satanic cult. And I don't think anyone's ready for that.